So let's say I'm just gonna create a site. Now here's an important notice. When we create our code, make sure that you don't have folders with spaces in them. So the name of the folder should not have space in it. It causes a lot of problem later. Okay, so I'm just gonna go to a place I know it doesn't have any spaces, so I'm just gonna go to the C drive. Okay, and I will create a folder that would be the parent folder of my application. Okay, so I will call this welcome web. Okay, so that's my parent folder. Now the HTML is just a plain text. Okay, so I can just create a new file here. That is a plain text document. I will call this index.html. Okay, so you see, once I specify the extension as HTML, the operating system recognizes it as a web page and recognize the browser as the main opening. Now I can, in order to edit it, I can't edit it on the browser. I have to open it in an editor. So any plain text editor would be sufficient. Notepad would be sufficient if you have to. Okay, so Notepad completely plain text is fine. Notepad++ is also a plain text, but with some extra highlighting, it makes it easier to read the code. Okay, so I'm just gonna open it with a Notepad++. It's not any different than Notepad except for a few features. I'm just gonna open the So I'm just gonna open it here in the editor. Now you see it is still empty. Okay, now I can start typing my code. Later on in the course, we're gonna start more. We're gonna use more advanced editor of VS Code. Okay, but just at the beginning, it enforces the learning when we use the plain text. So just while we are first trying to understand the context or the concept of the HTML, we're gonna use the plain text. Later on, we can use editors. Okay. So I'm gonna start by the HTML tag, the main HTML. So you see here, this is the what I'm talking about. It just highlights the code with color, so it makes it easier to see. Okay, but other editors help you with like detecting the code that you want to write, so they will help with it. So it kind of hinders the learning. It's helpful. It saves time when you already learned the concepts and you just want to save time. But when you're learning, you need to do things with your own hands. Okay, so this is the main structure. So inside the HTML, I want to create two tags, the head. So this is the head of the page. So don't confuse it with the concept of a header. So the header is just a title kind of thing, but the head is just a place where we put information need to be known inside throughout the page. Okay, and then I will create another element that is the body. So here inside the body, everything that the user needs to see should go there. All right, now you can see, notice that I added an indentation just to be able to read it. Now the browser doesn't care. The browser doesn't care about the empty spaces at all. It's just for the human reader to be able to read it. Okay, so if you put the entire code in one line, the browser doesn't care. But if you try to open it as a human reader, you won't be able to read it. Okay, so that's just for readability. Okay, so let's say here I'm gonna put a title. All right, so title. So I will just call this E2202 home page. Okay. And then inside the body, I'm gonna put a header. So this is the main heading inside the page, and that requires closing. Okay. And the content, I was gonna say, welcome to SE 2202. Okay, and then I will put a paragraph. And then I'll say here, this is the home page of the SE 2202 course. So some text. Okay. All right, so this is the code, the HTML code. Now, in order to see it from the end user's point of view, I will have to run it in the browser, right? So I can run it in any browser. Okay. If I just double click on it, it will open in the browser automatically. Otherwise, I can just specify it in the browser itself. So I can type C and type the address, or just double click on it. It will open in the browser. So there you go. I could have typed this address right away in the address bar. Yes. Take the extension. You might have like extension here. So, can you show the extension? Can you open Google Chrome? Yeah. So here's the thing, the different browsers. So if you have something wrong in the structure, it might be and see if you can put that in the message back. Yeah. Yeah. And then the other so there might be some that's put in mistake or something like that. So try if you open with Chrome, now here's the thing. Sometimes the browsers, if you mess up the structure, like misspell a tag name, or forget a slash, for example, or forget a closing tag, or the opening and closing are not aligned properly. So some browsers are gonna try to figure out what went wrong and fix it. So they try to speculate and fix it. Some browsers are not. So now you can see here, he opened it in Safari. It looks different than when I open it in Chrome. Now, even though it is supposed to be standard, it's supposed to be consistent. However, this is ideal. So it's not something that's not there yet. Inconsistency still exists. Okay, so I'm guessing that you may have some spelling mistake or something. We can look into it in more detail. But for now, okay, so here we go. So we have here's the title. You can see it in the like the title of the tab, and then here's the first heading, header 1, and then here's a paragraph. All right. Okay, so how about this? Now we're gonna Okay, let's just continue and then we'll look into, if you have any problems, we'll look into it. All right. So now there is a very important construct or a very important element that's called the link. Okay, so that's one of the main reasons that the internet was invented to begin with, is to link different documents together. Okay, so how does that happen? It happens through a tag. It's called anchor. Okay, and short for anchor is A. So you can see here A, and it's not an open tag. It's a tag that requires closing. I'll look into it. I promise. Okay, it requires closing. So there is a closing here. The content of the element is the text that the user sees. Okay, so you see here the value of the href attribute. Now this is an important attribute we cannot forgo. So that's an important attribute. So it tells us where to go when the user clicks on this link. Okay, so it could be a link to a page in the web like this, or it could be a link to another page in my own website. So local page or external page. Okay, so this is the where to. So we tell the browser the URL we want to go to. Okay, and then this is the text that will appear to the user. So if you have a link like this or an element like this in your page, it will look something like this. Okay, so here's another example. Okay, so this is the href where the URL is, and then this is the text that will appear. So when you run a browser, it looks like this, only the text. And then the default format is it would be underlined and it would turn blue. Okay, now you can have references to pages in your own site. So this, for example, these are the pages that we have locally created. Okay, so if we have something like this, it should appear like something like that. List of links. So if you click on any of them, then I go back, yeah. So if you look at any of them, click on any of them, it would take you to that other page that is relatively thin. So because there is no directory of anything, that means that this file must exist in the same directory where that page is. Okay? All right. Now so that's one type of link that takes you to another page altogether. Okay? Now there is another type of link that takes you somewhere within the same page. Okay? So here, for example, we have some links here in the top that want to go to sections in the same page. Okay, so that when we specify the reference that starts with a hash, okay, so throughout, even in JavaScript and CSS, when we see this hash, it means that we refer to an ID of tag. Okay, so that means so that means we are this link should go to an element that has an ID, an attribute. The ID attribute has a value equal to this value. Okay, so that's right here. Now the attribute called ID, and this is the value that matches the name here. And whenever we see a hash, we know that we're talking about an ID. Okay, so this link, when you click on it, it will take you to this tag. Okay, similarly, this link, we want to go to the top of the page. Okay, now you see the top of the page, there is a heading or a header element that has ID equal to top. So we refer to it with the hash and the name of the ID or the value of the ID attribute. Okay, so when we click on it, it will take us up to that H1 element. Okay, Now, the ID element, the ID attribute is a very important attribute that has a lot of usage, okay? And then there is another attribute called the name attribute that's different than the ID. Okay, just like when you, as a student, you have the student name and the student ID. Okay, each of them has its own usage. Okay, and both of them are important. And we'll see an example of the name attribute, how it is used later. Okay.